Hey buddy, welcome back to Netcode-Hub channel. I am Frederick and I'm happy to have you here today. In this video, we are going to look at some amazing enhancements made to serialization and deserialization in .NET 8 Core. Maybe you'll be asking yourself, what the heck is serialization and deserialization? Don't worry, keep calm. I'm going to explain them to you. If you know it already, then I give you a thumbs up. Before we jump into this topic, let me take some time and appreciate you for taking time to watch videos that I do post onto this channel. And once you also watch this video, you make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit on that notification bell so you never miss out any of our upcoming content. If you enjoy what you're going to see today and you're okay with it, please do not forget to give this video a thumbs up. When you do that, it helps this channel grow. And I believe you want this channel to grow too. Stick around to the end of this video because trust me, this is going to be something that you wouldn't want to miss at all. I do offer training sessions to those who are interested in .NET technologies, talking about Blazor, Blazor Server, that's the Blazor WebAssembly, .NET MARI and MARI Blazor Hybrid, and also web service, talking about APIs. So if you want to learn more about this, please have an email at the video description. Go in there, hook me up over there, and we can communicate. Also, after this video, if you have any thoughts, please put it at the comment section and I'll attend to you as well. Those of us who haven't heard of serialization and deserialization, let me use just a minute to explain that. Now we talk about serialization. It is the act of converting object into JSON string. That's all. So converting objects or models into JSON string is known as serialization. Then, what is serialization? It is a vice versa of serialization. So now this time around, we are converting the JSON string into the object. Now we are limited to, or I'm talking about .NET, so converting .NET object, that models, from .NET into JSON string, and now that is the serialization. And also converting from string into .NET object, it is known as deserialization. Why are we talking about this today? You know, when it comes to data communication from a service or an API and a client, JSON is what they use for communication. That is why we need to know how to serialize and also how to deserialize this. Maybe you know it already, but there has been an enhancement to that in .NET 8, and that is what I'm going to take you through. Well, maybe you'll be asking yourself, what the heck is also JSON? Alright, so if you don't know, then let me tell you. So first of all, JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. It is a lightweight data interchange format. It is easy use for communication between a service and our client. It is also easy for humans to read and write, and also easy for machines to also pass it and generate. So maybe you'll be asking yourself, what is JSON? That is JSON. It stands for JavaScript Object Notation. JavaScript Object Notation. It is a lightweight data interchange format. It is easy for human to read and write, and also easy for machine to pass and generate. It is used for communication between a client and a server. So it is very important to know JSON, because when you have your API, you need to communicate with your API, and definitely you're going to be using JSON. Now when you use the JSON, you have to deserialize it as a response from the JSON. And now when communicating, no, as a response from the API, sorry, I don't want to confuse you today. And when you're also communicating to the API, you also have to serialize or convert your object into a JSON so that the server or the API can understand. So with this, there has been an update in serialization and deserialization in .NET for the past couple of years, since from .NET 5, we have 6, 7. Now within 8, there's an amazing features that have been added to it, and I call them enhancements, okay? So let's first have a look. I'm going to talk about 4 aspects here. The first one is going to be how to handle missing properties members during serialization. We're going to have a look on how to include non-public properties and constructors in JSON formation, and also how to use source generation for serialization and also deserialization. And the last part here, we're going to talk about how to change the name during serialization by using either dash or underscore. So how do you modify the property name using underscore or dash? Okay, we're going to have a look on this for aspect. So that's going to be for the objective of this video. So stick around to get to the end because this is very important. Thank you. All right, so now let's jump straight to the first one. That is how to handle missing property members during deserialization. When we are done with this project or this work, I'll put it under the GitHub. So maybe you can just go in there and now what you've done here, you can just clone it and review. Let's go through this. I have a web API created, fresh and new. As you can see, nothing has been done. And if I run this project, I have the default endpoint as a weather forecast. And that is what we're going to be using for this podcast. Okay, so don't worry, we're not going to do anything new. Whoa, so I have to build this again, and I have to install some packages in here so it can run well. Let's do that. You know, for this time around, I have to make sure my internet is active. It is working, not active only, it is also working. So let's do it again and see, because you know it has to restore some packages as soon as you create a default project. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, everything's set, ready, and you can see it is running. So you make sure you do same and run your project as well, and let's see. So there's nothing here, as you can see. So I decided to run this application so you know what you're going to use. Now we have this endpoint as weather forecast created by the ASP team. It's inbuilt already. Now if I click on this, try this out, you know we have access to the following data here as a JSON format. So this what we're talking about is a JSON. So it is used in API communication. Okay, so you can see when we make an API request, we've seen this as a response. Okay, so now let's talk about how to handle any of them. Now we see this JSON has 4 properties: date, temperature C, temperature F, and our summary. These are the properties. Let's find out and see the actual model designed for this. So go to Solution Explorer, and in here you can see we have this weather forecast. It's a model or it's a class, as we all know. Now this class has these 4 guys. These are the properties of a class: date, temperature C, temperature F, and our summary. So these are the properties of this model, and that is what it is using to retrieve the data from the API. Okay, now you're going to create another set of another model, and instead of repeating these 4 properties, we are going to remove 1. We're going to skip 1 and I'll maintain 3. Let's say in case you try to get the data from the API, and each will be able to receive its corresponding property, but when it gets to the last one, which has been removed, let's see what's going to happen. So maybe you like to use this temperature C. Okay, so this, let's make a copy of this. I would like to just copy this. Let's create one model. So we go to our solution. Let's create a model here. And now with this, we're going to name this as response. So you can put it any name that you want, even your name will be all right. Okay, please don't name it with your name. Okay, so let's see this. We have the same thing. We are making a copy of this, and we are going to comment this. So this model is having 3 properties. Is it properties? Yeah, that's right. It is having 3 properties now. Okay, now with this, you can see we have it already. So we can just make a copy of this, and let's set it here, because you're going to receive from an API. We are not setting anything. We're going to make a receiving from an API. Okay, so we have 3 properties active now. Let's save this. Let's go to our API. So it can be found in the controllers folder, weather forecast controller, and I'll check it out. You see, this is an API that we have. Okay, now this is the method that is giving us. So let's write another method in here, and I'm going to say this is going to be public async. Is it async? No, because Yeah, I'm not calling the API yet. So public task, and I like to use this action interface, so results. And here, let's say this get weather forecast 2. Now in here, since this is going to return enumerable, meaning a list, we want to fish out or filter and get only one model out of this, right? So let's get as a result is equal to, now when you call this get method, it's going to call this method. Now when you call this method, it's going to return a list, and we want to just pick any. So we can use first or default, you can use last, take, you can use any of them. So let's use first or default to take the very first one. Now when we are done, this is what we're going to do. We are going to now serialize this into JSON format, right? So let's have a look, so that when we call this method, we can retrieve the JSON. Now let's see how to do that. So first, let's serialize it. So I'm going to say serialize objects. I'll use the obj is equal to, then we can use JSON serializer, and that is this dot serialize. You see we have this in here, right? And now we pass in this result. So this result, that is this one. So after serializing this, it's going to have all the properties in here. That is the 4 properties. Okay, so this has, let me put the 4 properties in here. And the properties, if you want to know, when you check this weather forecast model, we have all the properties in there. Now this, after we serialize this, we are going to deserialize it. So here, you can say this is serializing. Now let's deserialize it and display to the screen. So I'll say this is deserializing. Okay, now when it comes to the deserializing section, we're going to say, so this is deserialize object. Don't mind the spellings, okay? So I have this deserialize. Now here, this is what we're going to do. Now you see that we have the serialize, so we're going to deserialize it. But before we do that, I want to pause this. Okay, let me just hold on that. And let's say return. Okay, and now serialize. Let's see what we have. So let's run this application and see. So we're going to return this serialize object. We are serializing this results here into a string format. So converting it from an object or a model, that's for the weather forecast model, and we are serializing it return to a string format. Let's use an async here. Let's run this application and I'll see what we have. Whoa, we have an error here. That's right. I know we have an error. Do you also know? Yes, because let me show you one thing. We did not specify any HTTP verb here. There's no route. Is it route? Yeah. So let's specify this HTTP get, and this here it is get. So let's give it a route, and I'm going to say this is fake. Now let's see. Okay, so you can see we have it over here. Now click on this, and let's click on try this out. Execute this. Let's see the response. Yeah, so there's a response. You can see that it has turned this into a single string. Okay. And we have the starting and now the ending. So it looks like a key value. So there is a key, there is a value. Key value pair. Key value pair. So key is the date. The value here is the date value. Key is the temperature C. This is the value, and the same thing applies to any of this here. So we'll be able to serialize the data into this JSON. Now we want to deserialize it. So as I speak, or as we all speak, we have date, temperature, temperature F, and our summary. How many? There are 4, isn't it? Good. Now let's see. When we go back and I'll check our response, one is missing, temperature C, it is missing. We have date. Let me just remove this at all. So we have date, we have temperature F, and summary, temperature C, it is nowhere to be found. Now we want to convert the string, JSON string, into an object. Okay, so currently you're going to have one-to-one matching, but when it gets to temperature C, there's no entity for that. So let's say one-to-one matching, date for date, or should I even put it like this? Okay, so when we click on response and bring this out, date for date, temperature C for no, temperature F for temperature F, summary for summary. So this is going to be what? Hidden out. It is out, but it is not actually out from the application. It is still there. But here, there's no data to receive. There's no receiver to handle that. And will that throw an exception or error? Let's try that and see. And after that, we look at the enhancement made with it. Okay, so anytime that you want to do the same, you want to call an API whereby you want to just get only a specific property from the API response, you can do that too. So go to the controller, and that is it. Now let's deserialize this. So as you have here, we're going to say deserialize object is equal to, now I'm going to still use the JSON converter. Is a converter serializer. So JSON serializer dot, because we have the deserialize. And now since you're going to use this object, you're not going to use weather forecast, because weather forecast has the 4 properties. You want to use the response that we created, which omits one property. So response, so control period, we can use this. Is there a response? I like to use response model because this response could be an HTTP response. Okay, so let's use this model before we get ourselves wanting. So we copy this. Now let's make a change to this very quick and fast. So response, let's change it. I believe you are done. Can you move on? Okay, now we have this response, so let's make response model. And now in here, we pass in the string. As you can see, it needs a JSON string. So let's copy this one, and now pass in here. Let's close it. And now instead of returning this, let's return this. So maybe we can use console. So console.writeLine. And now let's pass in the serialized object. So we see this serialized object on the screen as well. Now let's run this and see. So the app is ready. Now let's click on this, our API. It's a customized one. And if I click on execute, let's see. Okay, so you see that here we have our date, our temperature, and now we have the summary. So you can see that here, although we've mixed one out, but we're able to retrieve the first 3 of them. That's this is the one that we have. The temperature C, it is out. But in case you don't want to do that, you want to restrict this in such a way that in case you couldn't retrieve any of the properties, it should throw an error. How are you going to do it? It's very simple. That's a new enhancement made to this serialization in .NET. And let's have a look with that. So on top here, where we have this model, you see we have 3 properties here. Now on top here, we need to specify an attribute. And now this attribute is going to be JSON unhandled map member handling. JSON unmapped member handling. And now in here, specify this as unmapped member handling, the same thing. So unmapped member handling. Now it has 2 modes. Or it is in 2 modes. Okay, so the first one, oh, we didn't do it well. Let's see it again. So that's a JSON. Okay, so it is in 2 modes. And now the first one, we have disallowed and allowed, or skipped. So default, I think skip is for the default. That is why in case you even miss any of them, you're still able to retrieve the last one or the rest. Let's set to disallowed, and I'll see. Now this is set to disallow. So in case you couldn't retrieve any of the properties, or there's an overdose of property from the service or from the server to our response, then it's going to throw an error. Let's save this. And now let's see. So let's click on it again. And I'll try this out. Execute this. And I can see we have an error here. And now what is it saying? temperature C could not be mapped to any .NET member contained in the response model. So it means we have this temperature C model missing. Okay, so quickly go in there and now add it. This is just an enhancement made to this. So if you want to also allow it, maybe in case you have a huge list of JSON that you want to allow, maybe you can just go in for skip. And now skip, since it is a default one, it is also going to just skip it. And that'll be all. There won't be any issue. So let's see. Try this out. Execute. And we see we still have it. So that is the first enhancement made to that. Now let's go to the next point. So the next one that we're going to have a look here, it is how to change property names during JSON formation. You know, properties have default names. As soon as you create them, you give them the names. Now, when we check our project, we see we have this is the default property. We have it over here already. Now, since you're done with this, you can just skip this and I return. Okay, so this is just a response. We're not going to use this response. We're going to use this weather forecast model in here. So when you switch to this weather forecast, you will see these properties, they have their names differently. We have day, temperature C, temperature F, and summary. Now, in defaultly, when a JSON is being sent from a server or an API, it uses a camel case. Maybe you'll be asking yourself, is it the first time of you hearing this camel case? Whoa, what is actually this camel case? It is something not difficult. It's very easy. And it is a case whereby, or it states that when creating a variable in your application, always start with lowercase. Do not start with uppercase. Example here is when you go to this weather forecast, you can see that I made a serialized object. Now, S here it is a lowercase, and now the object is the uppercase. Why is this useful? There are a lot of reserved keywords in applications that we do. That is a framework here that we see. If I want to write something, a variable to handle maybe JSON serializer, as soon as I start with lowercase, it is fine. But what if in case you start with uppercase, then it's going to be like you are calling that keyword. That is the reason why I always start with lowercase. That is what we use in camel case. But this time around, there are also another two cases that have been added to the camel case. So what are these? The first one is called snack case. Or is it snake case? Let's see, snack or snake case. It depends on how you're going to pronounce it. But I say snack, maybe you're going to say snake. Okay, and that is associated with the underscore. And we have the kebab case. Kebab. That's fine. Kebab case. And that is for hyphen. So you can rename your properties using underscore and now hyphen. Let's quickly have a look. So in that, we need to specify something in here, and that's what we know as JSON serializer options. So options are the additional data that you want to add when converting from the model to your object to your JSON string. Now let's see. So we have this. We want to create an object or option here. So we're going to say var options is equal to JSON serializer option, and that is this one. So in this, you can specify something like here. Okay, the first one is because we have the property name. So take note, we have property name. We forgot to add new. It's very important. We're creating an instance of it, not the actual one key. So property name, we can have it. And as you can see, property name, we have case insensitive. You can set that to true. And check this, we have naming policy. Now of this naming policy, let's have a look. Defaultly, that is the camel case that I spoke about. But this time around, you don't want to use this camel case. In our response, we want to, let's check that response. You can see this is a response, temperature F. T here, it is a lowercase, F is a uppercase. That is a camel case. We want to use maybe kebab or snake or snack. In such case, with a snack, we're going to have underscores. It's going to be temperature underscore F. For the kebab, it's going to be temperature hyphen F. Let's try each one and see what I'm talking about. So, instead of the camel case, we're going to use, you can see we have the snake or the snack case lower. You can also use snack case upper. Let's close this. Now, when you initialize this, we can specify this to the options here, because the options must be the same. So let's pass in this option, and it's going to use that for the serialization. And now when we are done and we want to deserialize it, use the same thing. So one bird is killing, one stone is killing two birds, isn't it? Okay, so we have this. Let's save it. And now let's see. Let's test this out. Okay, maybe we can bring our this time too. So you can see that's the first one. I did not even show you this. That is a date, temperature F, and then the summary. All right. Now if I click on our endpoint, this time we're going to use the camel, not the camel case, snack case. So try this out. Okay. So it seems like this did not work. Let's check this also. All right, so this worked. You see from here, temperature underscore C, temperature underscore F, right? And take note, you can see that all of them, they are in lower cases. C is in lowercase, F in lowercase, isn't it? Now let's put it here because this will make it clear. Now when you go to the same section, deserialize, we want to, so let's copy this, and that is this one. Okay, so we are deserializing it. But this time around, instead of using this response model, we are going to use this weather forecast. So let's change this to weather forecast. Let's save this. Now let's test it out. Okay, so this is not still working. Let's see. Oh, now I get it. I know you've gotten that already. Now, when we are deserializing it, it won't show us that camel case issue. We're going to see the actual one because you are converting it to this weather forecast property or model. And the properties in there is also going to be displayed on the screen. But here, since it's going to be a string, you're going to see the formatting. Okay, so let's pass in this. And now let's display that. And now here, we're going to see what we saw. So check that out. You can see we have temperature underscore C. Now all these are in lowercase. So if you want to handle your properties in the JSON format in this way, don't forget, it is very simple. Use the snack case. Now you can also change this to upper. This case lower. So check. So snack. You see we have upper, save that, and now let's check it out. So try this out, execute, and now see. You can see it is in uppercase. Alright, so that is also one thing that you can do. Now let's have a look with the other one with the dash. This is just underscore and the dash is snack. Let's see with the kebab. Or how are you going to pronounce it? Kebab or kebab? Kebab lowercase, save that, and let's see. So try this out, execute, and now check it out. You can see that we have the hyphenated, and now when you change this to the uppercase too, you're going to have it in an uppercase form. There's a new enhancement, I think so, because according to the docs, it said it can be applied to .NET 8. All right, let's go to the next one, which is including on public properties and constructors in JSON formation. So maybe in your model formation, you would like to make some properties as internal or private. You wouldn't want to call them or use them anytime that you call the model. You like to have an inbuilt method to set values to these properties. In such case, it's going to make it the signature type is going to be maybe internal or private. But in case you want to use it in a JSON formation, do you have to go back and now change from internal to public? Because JSON formation has to deal with the properties which have public as their signature. Let me show you this. You can see when we go to this weather forecast, we have our signature here. You can see this is a public, and we have a data type as integer, and this is a temperature F. Now this here, it is exposing this property outside. When you call this method, when you call this model, model, okay, you can have access to this temperature F because of this guy here, public. So hello, I'm public. Anybody can have access to me. That is what it is saying. Now, I don't want to do this. This field has to be set internal. So in such case, and I want this in a JSON formation, is it possible to get that property out? Yes. The new enhancement here made it. Let me show you, or let's all learn together. Let's add one property. So first of all, this is going to be internal. So this internal. Okay. Now with this internal, let's see, if I save this, rebuild this application, now that is a date time or date only. Let's check and see when we make a query from an API endpoint. Let's see if we're going to have access to this date. Let's click on our endpoint, try this out. Now execute it. And let's see, you can see the internal property is off. It is out because it is not public. So we can't have access to it. So when you have this in your model and maybe you're using it for a particular purpose, and later on if you want to get a JSON out of it, meaning you won't get it unless you go back and change it to public. So let's see the enhancement made to this so we can have access to this method. Now we go back to the same section. Now on top here, on top, we're going to specify this attribute on top, and that is known as JSON include. So JSON include this. Put it on top. Leave it internal as it is. Put this on top. Anytime it's a JSON formation, it's going to check all those properties that have this JSON include as an attribute on top, and it's going to grab them by hook or crook. If you have internal, that is a signature or whatever thing that you have, as soon as I have this property on top of you, then I'm going to use you in the formation. Okay, now if I save this, and now let's have a look again for the second time, the same endpoint. Now let's see if we're going to have access to that field. Yeah, then we have it because we have the date. So that is the one way. Another one here is maybe you're going to have another property that you wouldn't want to set value to it, but it's going to depend the value in here. Let's see. So this is going to be temperature C, temperature F, right? We want to say that public, then total. I don't know what your total is, but here let's have a total, and maybe this is going to be int. Okay, now in here we are saying that it is returning this temperature F, temperature C. Let's by what, or is it by or addition? Let's add it, temperature F. So you see that this we are not going to see, because it doesn't have the get or set accessor, so it means we are not going to assign any value to it. This is going to depend on the values obtained for this temperature C and our temperature F. We're going to add them and now assign it to this total. When you do this, this will work. But let's see the next one where you want to use constructor. As soon as the page is called, the model is called, you want the constructor to initialize this. Okay, so here let's have our get and now set accessor. You can make this as internal And now you can make this as internal as you've done internal already. You know what internal going to do. And as soon as you pass in internal, it means you must pass in JSON include, isn't it? JSON include. Okay. Now you can also make this as public. We are just trying it to see. And now here, let's create a constructor here. So we can just pass a CTOR. That's a constructor. And now when the page loads, this internal that we have, we're going to say total is equal to the value of this. So we can now paste this. Okay. So we're saying total is equal to this plus this. As soon as this get their data, then it's going to assign it to this total property here. And now when we have this, this is going to be exposed to the public. Because as soon as it is public, it means it's going to be exposed. But I know this is something that it is internal. We don't want anybody to override this, assign any temperature to this. We want to assign them here. And as soon as the value of this changes, then it has to also change here. In doing so, we have to set here as also internal. Okay, so internal means no one can have access to this method. Now let's save this. Let's rebuild this application and I'll try this out. So the app is ready. Now let's click on our endpoints and I'll see what we have now. So if I click on this and I click on execute this, let's see the response. Okay, so we have an 500 status error code. And now what is it saying? It is saying that a visualization of a type without a parameterized constructor, a singular parameterized constructor, and etc. 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 Okay, what you can actually grab from here it is we have to constructor annotation with JSON constructor attribute. It is not supported. Okay, so for now, based on what we've done, that is not supported. Let's make it support. We can do that from the same section. Now on top here, maybe you'll be asking yourself or be giving a suggestion here that why don't we include the same JSON include on top of this? No, take note, this is not a property, it is a method. It is just a constructor method that is right here. So we cannot specify this attribute on top. But it has its own attribute that is known as JSON constructor. Okay, so put that on top. And it's going to make this public. So JSON constructor. That is this one. Put it on top like that. Save this. Let's do it again. And see what we're going to have. Yeah, so now we have it. We have one left. Let's talk about that one too. And that is how to use or using source generation for serialization and now deserialization. According to Microsoft documents on System.Text.Json, that is the namespace where we have all these guys from. We have System.Text.Json, serialization, right? So that's where we have everything, these guys and all the JSON sections or these JSON boys from. According to the documentation on this, by default, this System.Text.Json gathers the metadata it needs or all the necessary data that it needs to access properties of objects for serialization and now deserialization at the runtime using reflection. So when the app starts, this System.Text.Json has to gather some metadata, some data that it needs around your object that you're going to create when using in communication from the API, sending a request and also receiving a request and now deserializing it or serializing the object and now returning to the API again. It is a work of this System.Text.Json to gather this metadata around so you can use in the serialization and now deserialization. But at times, when dealing with this, it can slow the process. The reason is when you are dealing with large objects, maybe a model which has a lot of large properties, it's going to take time to do it. So to increase the performance, So this technique has been in existence since .NET 6, I think so, .NET 6, and then not .NET 7. And yeah, .NET 6, later version of the .NET 6, and now the C# language version must be C# 9.0 or later. So that is where these enhancements were introduced. But maybe let's go through and let's see if you've used this before, if you've used it before. Okay, there are 4 ways that we can use it. 4 methods, and they are: 1, you can use the JSON type info, and now this needs a T value. We can also use JSON serializer context. All of them I'm talking about, you're going to use the instance. And the next one is you can use JSON serializer option. And I believe you've even done one here. And I think these are the 3 ones. Yeah, 3. So let's have a look with each how to use any of them to encrypt. Is it encrypt? Oh, serialize or deserialize your objects. So we go back to this weather forecast. And now in here, the same method, this is for the serialization and this is deserializing. Let me just copy this and let me comment it. Okay. Now the very first thing to do here is you go to the class. The class that you're going to be using for this communication, for the serialization and now deserialization. Let's say this is a class. Okay. Or you have this class. Let's create another one because here we've tempered this. So let's make a copy of this and I'll use it. So let me copy this. And I'm going to say this is going to be weather forecast 1. So, or let's put into this response. No, let's create one. So add a class. And I say weather forecast. Weather forecast 1. Let's paste in this. So we have this 4 properties and this must be public as usual. Okay. Now that we have this, we go back to the controller, weather forecast controller, and in here, we are going to serialize it with the 3 method that I spoke about. Okay. So first, here, let's have a look with the first one. So let's use this, and that's the first method using this JSON type info. So the class that you're going to be using, you have to create a partial class to this. Okay, so it's a partial class. Now with the same method, this is the same model that we are going to use. Let's count down here, and now we have to specify create as an internal. You know, this limiter is an internal work, and I set to partial, and I say class. Now in here, let's set a source generation context. So context. Now this, I believe you can make change to this, and it has to inherit from this JSON serialization or serializer context. So JSON serializer context. So that is a key thing here. It has to inherit from this. Okay. And after the inheritance, that's all. Nothing is in again, but you must specify the type of this at the weather forecast on top. So I have to put it like this, and on top here, specify the JSON source generation options. So write indented set to true, and now JSON serializable type of set this to weather forecast, because that's the weather forecast that you're going to be using. So if it is another class that you're going to be using, you definitely have to change the class here. Okay. Also, you can also set a type of, again, let's make a copy of this. You can set this to, let's say, bool. You can set it to string. So you can set this to string, integer, any data type. When any of these members here has an object, because the object means the data type, it is not well cleared, it's not identified. So object is like a container, a general container that can handle all sorts of data type. So if it is an object, then you need to specify the type of the data that the object is going to handle. You need to add it here. But in case you do not have any of this, as for this example, because this is the date time, this is integer, and this is string. So this I have then specified clearly. Then I did not need to use any of this. So you have to use any of this. You have to use this when you have object as a type. Take note. Okay. Now this is all thing that we need to do. We're not going to pass in anything here. What you need here is a serializable with a type of the model that we are going to use. And here it is a weather forecast one. Thank you for alerting me. And we have this. Now let's go to the controller. And now in here, we're going to use the JSON type info. How are you going to configure this? Do you have any idea? Let's have a look. So let's have our string JSON object, the same thing. JSON object is equal to, we're going to use this JSON serializer, and we're also going to serialize this. So serialize this, and now in here, take note, we are going to pass in, so we need to copy this. Okay, so let's copy this and now paste it here, because we are getting a copy of this. So we are just retrieving one from the list that we have from this model or this method. Now in here, let's pass in this result. So I would like to use, let's say this is a result. Okay, so let's copy this and I'll pass in here. Now when we are done, when specifying JSON options, you have to put it next to the model. Okay, so in here, what you do here is specify the source. Now you can have source generation context. You know where we are getting it from? We are getting it from this weather forecast. Where is it? Weather forecast 1. This source generation context, which inherits from this JSON serializer context. Okay, so in there we are passing it in there, and now it has a default to the weather forecast. Take note, weather forecast. So this is an option that we are passing in, and here it is known as using the JSON type info because of the type of because of the type of that we specified on top here. We can be able to retrieve it from our list from this default. Okay, now we have this encrypted, serialized. Let's return okay with this. So let me grab this. The next line, let's return this JSON obj. So that is it. Now let's save this, let's run this and see. So if I click on this and I click on try this out, so execute, and now we have this. It is saying unable to cast object of the type weather forecast 2, weather forecast 1. Yes, we've mismatched it. So now let's see. We are using this weather forecast 1, but we are retrieving data from this weather forecast. Take note. So let's make it as 1, 1. Okay, so offset. Let's do it again. So rebuild and apply. Okay, so you can see that we have the JSON, and that is it. So you can see we have these keys and we have their values respectively. Okay, so that's the first one, using this JSON type info, which carries with a T value. And in this case, it's going to be the model that we specify as a weather forecast 1 model. Let's have a look at the next one, and that is by using JSON serializer context. So using JSON serializer context, let's go to the application, and now here I'm going to say using this JSON serializer context. So with this, what we're going to do here is we can just make a copy of this and I'll paste it down here. Remember that we have it set as the source generation class in here, and that's what you're going to be using all the time. So source generation context. Now when you go back to this weather forecast controller, down here we have, let's comment this since we are done using it, and now we get the same result from this method. And now here you can see that we are specifying source generation context.default.this the model. So this time around, you're going to do that. You're going to make it source generation context.default, and now we have to specify the type of here. So type of, and at the type of here, it is a weather forecast. So 1. So it is actually works the same. It depends on you which one that you want to use. So here, specify the type of within the line. But the other one, the first one here is have to use the default, and I use this model at the end. Okay, save this and let's try this out also, and let's also see what we're going to have now. So it's going to be the same. Try this out, and I can see we have the same thing. Let's see the next one, and that is the using serialization options. So using this serialization, that is serializer options, isn't it? Okay. So with this, we have to explicitly specify the source generation context here. So we're going to say that. So we can say var source generation options is equal to new JSON serializer options. Okay, and now in here we are going to specify the type of. So here we need the type info resolver. Now the type of here, we're going to specify it to the source generation options dot. Okay, so it is not this one. We need the one from the class. So this one I'm talking about, this one. So we can just make a copy of this. Then we say dot. Then we see we have this default, and we have to close it. Now let's return this, or let's copy this, and I return OK. But before that, we are going to now serialize the data first. So in here, we're going to say serialize, but let me just put this to sleep. Okay, so with this, let's copy one. All right, now once you have this source generation option, you can just make a copy of this, and I will go to JSON serializer.serialize, and this time around, you're going to use this result, as you know, then type of weather forecast, and now instead of this, we specify this explicitly here, so we can remove everything from this section, and now paste what we just specified, this one. So it is the same thing, just that it has workaround that you can use. Let's save this, and now let's see. And you see here too, we have the same thing, isn't it? Yes, we have. So these are the three methods that you can use to serialize it. Now, when it comes to this serialization, it works the same. Let's quickly have a look with each of them. So let's go back here and let's use. So I'm going to also comment this control. Since, okay, we have one here, isn't it? Now, let's use that. So here, okay, let's go in for the deserialization. Okay, now the first method that we're going to create here, we're going to say weather forecast or weather forecast data. So let's create as a variable. Then we're going to say it's equal to JSON serializer. You must have the equal sign here. It's a JSON serializer dot deserialize. Then here we need to specify some aspect in here. And what is the first one? That's a model. So there's a weather forecast 1. Remember that, weather forecast 1. Also open this, and now let's specify the string. So this is our string. This is the JSON object. Copy this. Now paste it in here. Oh, let's go back and see. So copy this one, and in here we have to paste this. Okay. Aside from that, we need to specify the options. So with the options, we can use source generation, the same source generation. So dot. Then we can go in for the default. So default, as you can see, then dot weather forecast. And if I do this, I'm talking about which one? Let me put this to the next line. This is using the type info. So this one, type info. That's why you need to specify the default corresponding to the model. So where is it? I can copy this on top here. So using type info for the deserializing the object. Okay. So this. And I return this weather forecast. So this is going to also deserialize it. Now if I click on this, let's save this and now let's run this application and see what we have. So I'll click on this, try this out, execute. And now if I here, you can see we have this the model and we have all the data being retrieved in here. If I check this JSON, you can see we have it in the JSON format and it has been deserialized in here. So that is the JSON type info. Okay, you have the same thing. Now let's go to the next one. And using the serializer context, you can do the same thing with it. So I'll just put it here and I'll say using this. So I'll just grab the same thing and I'll put it here. Let's comment this one. So with this, what you're going to do here is after you pass in our object here, and we can, instead of this, we can use our type of. So type of, then pass in your weather forecast 1. And here we don't need to specify this weather forecast again because it has been specified in as a type. So let's put comma and I remove this weather forecast 1 default. Okay, so once you have this, we need to then cast this so as weather forecast 1. Okay, so we have to remove this. Now we have this is the string. So the type of is over here already. So you need not to specify the type in here again. You know, we do this to specify the t value, that is the type. And now since we are specifying the type of within the parameter here, we don't need to bring that. So that's why we've removed it. And now we cast it to this weather forecast 1. That's the model that we use. So when you save this, put a breakpoint. And I return this weather forecast. So if I click on, try this out and I execute it. If I hover the mouse, you can see we have this, the object that we have. Temperature here, it is 0. Is that so? Temperature here is 0. Yeah, that is it. Okay. Now let's have a look with the last one. So execute this. And we also have same. Let's see the last one, and that is using the JavaScript. Oh, JSON serializer options. That's the last one. Let's see that. So in here, the same section, I'll just have to comment this and I'll give it to this. And here, let me just copy this now, paste it. Okay. And now let's uncomment this. So it is simply what I can do here is, you see we have the same thing set up here. That's the first one. That's the last one. So we can just make a copy of this. And instead of the serializer, we're going to change it to this serializer and we move on. This is very simple. So let me just grab this and comment them. And we are creating a source generation section. So here, we have one created already, right? So this is the one that we've created and we can use it into this method as well. So there's no need to create it again. We can remove this. Now, once you have this JSON obj, that's the object, JSON serializer.serialize. So not serialize, rather deserialize. So deserialize. And now with this too, we do not need to specify the object here. We are going to pass in the result. So there's a result in here. So let's specify in this. And also we have to specify the type of. So that is a type of. And the last one is instead of, we have to specify the same source generation options. And that is this one. So source generation options. So we have same in here. And you know, since it's going to return as an object, it's no more string, so rather it's going to be an object. Okay, then this, let's say this is the result. Then we will return this result. Let's say, is it used here already? Okay, so it's used already. Results 1, then results 1. Let's put a breakpoint here, save it, and let's refresh this application. Click on this, try this out, execute. It has been hit. If I click on this, now I have the model in here. Alright, so that is it. Now in this video, we've seen the 4 aspects that we decide to talk about. That is handling missing properties, members during serialization, also how to include non-public properties and constructed in JSON formation, using source generation for both serialization and now deserialization, and now changing the name by using the dash, and the dash is what you know as the kebab case, and now the underscore is a snack case. Thank you so much for watching this video. I am actually grateful for that. I'll put this at the GitHub, so check the description too. That is the reason why I commented them, so you can actually go through with them as well. Take care, and I'm going to catch you up in the next video.